So there are different types of solutions. You can have a solution composed of any combination of phases. And here are some examples. Gaseous solutions are very common. The air we're breathing is a gas solution. Air is mostly oxygen and nitrogen, but then there's other gases in there as well. Liquid solutions are very common. You can have gas, liquid, or solid dissolved in a liquid. And here's some examples. We can also have solid solutions. An alloy is a mixture, a solution of two or more different metals. Now, you can't take a piece of iron and a piece of lead and just put them together and have them mix. You have to melt them, but you can mix them and create a homogeneous mixture, and it's called an alloy. You can also have a gas dissolved in a solid, and just any combination is possible. Aqueous solutions are the most common. In an aqueous solution, water is the solvent. Any particular solvent will not dissolve all possible solutes. Some things will dissolve, other things will not. And even the things that will dissolve, there's generally a limit to how much will dissolve, and that's called the solubility. The amount of substance that will dissolve in a given amount of the solvent. And that solubility depends on several things. It depends on the tendency towards mixing and on the types of intermolecular forces present in the solvent. Here we have an illustration of it's probably like club soda or something. It's fizzy water. It's got carbon dioxide dissolved in water. This tendency towards mixing is called entropy. Now, many systems tend towards lower potential energy. We've talked about that a lot. That's a driving force behind many things. Forming a solution does not necessarily lower the potential energy. So then why would it happen if it's not energetically favorable? An example here is two gases that are separated, and if you remove the dividing thing, those gases are going to mix. Does that cause them to have a lower potential energy? No. And yet we know that this happens, right? Because these gas atoms here travel in straight lines until they run into something. And if we remove the divider, they're going to travel in straight lines until they've uniformly mixed. But the driving force there is not a lowering of potential energy. The driving force there is entropy. Entropy is a little hard to define. It's energy randomization or energy dispersal in a system. It's a scattering of energy. So when two ideal gases mix, the kinetic energy of each gas becomes spread out over a larger volume. And so that's an increase in entropy. So substances mix because of this entropy, the pervasive tendency for energy to spread out whenever it's not restrained from doing so. This also explains transfer of thermal energy from hot objects to cold ones. It's the energy spreading out. Entropy, because it's energy spreading out, is often related to objects spreading out. You ever played 52 card pickup? Take a deck of cards, and they go all over the place. Why don't they land in order or in rows? They never do, right? They just scatter. And the leaves that are falling off the trees right now, they were very ordered on the tree. When they fall, they just are all over the place. It's a distribution of energy. It's a randomization, a scattering. The energy of those leaves, the energy of the cards, scattered. My house is a demonstration of entropy, because if you don't put energy into, very significant energy, into straightening things out, it's very, very random. Intermolecular forces have a big effect on the formation of a solution or a solution not forming. So dispersion forces are present in heptane and pentane, and because these have similar forces, they're going to mix well together. Dipole-dipole forces, those things are going to mix well together. Hydrogen bonds, ion dipole forces. I think of these intermolecular forces a little bit like speaking a language. And so if the substances that are trying to form a solution speak the same language, if they have the same type of intermolecular forces, then they're more likely to mix than if their forces are different. Like if you've got heptane and you're trying to mix it with water, water has very strong hydrogen bonding, and so the water molecules are very strongly attracted to each other, and the heptane only has dispersion forces, and it can't break into this network of hydrogen bonded water molecules. Yes?
For the ion dipole forces, do those only exist when there's like a full positive negation?
Yes, ion dipole forces only exist with actual ions. So it's not dipoles, because then it would be dipole-dipole force. So here's the effect of intermolecular forces. We've got intermolecular forces in three different combinations. We've got between the solvent particles, between the solute particles, and between the solvent and solute particles. So if a solution will form, it's going to depend on the relative strengths of those three different types of interactions. And the sort of catchphrase that we use is like dissolves like. If the solute and the solvent have similar intermolecular forces, a solution will probably form. It's not a rule, it's just sort of a generalization, lots of exceptions. Mentioned this word earlier, miscible. Think mixable. Miscible describes two liquids that are soluble in all proportions. That's not true of all things. But alcohol and water are miscible, which means you can have an aqueous solution, you have pure water and put a teaspoon of ethanol in it. It will mix just fine. You could have pure ethanol and put a teaspoon of water in it. It'll mix just fine. That's not true of all liquids that can form solutions. So miscible means soluble in all proportions. So the formation of a solution depends on relative strengths. If the interactions between the solvent and solute particles are greater than the interactions of the particles with themselves, a solution will form. If they are equal, a solution will form. If the interactions between the solvent and the solute are weaker than the interactions between the solvent with itself and the solute with itself, a solution may or may not form, depending on how different those forces are. And the reason this could happen, this solution forming is going to cause an increase in energy. But the increase in energy can be offset by a change in entropy, the spreading out. So, determine whether each compound is soluble in hexane. And this really comes down to thinking about intermolecular forces. Now, we did not do a lot of organic nomenclature, but we did do alkanes. And so hexane, the prefix hex means what? 6. And the ane means that we've just got single bonds, right? So we've got 6 carbons. Yeah. 6 carbons. Forgot to charge my Apple Pencil. Are the bonds in this compound polar or nonpolar? Nonpolar, because they're carbon and hydrogen. That's the one thing I told you to remember. So there's hexane. What kind of intermolecular forces does that have?
Dispersion.
Just dispersion forces. Okay, so here we've got dispersion forces. And now what we need to do is look at each of these different substances and identify what sort of intermolecular forces they have. So it generally, we need to look at what's the strongest intermolecular force that it has. So for water, what's the strongest intermolecular force? Hydrogen bonding. So this has hydrogen bonding. Are dispersion forces and hydrogen bonding alike? No. Is this going to form a solution? No. How about ammonia? What kind of forces does ammonia have? It's got hydrogen bonding. Ammonia is a polar molecule. And it's got nitrogen-hydrogen bonds, so this also has hydrogen bonding. Will this dissolve in hexane? Like dissolves like. Are hydrogen bonds and dispersion forces like? No. How about propane? What kind of forces does that have? Dispersion. Will this form a solution with hexane? Probably. Because they are alike. How about hydrogen chloride? Polar or nonpolar? Polar. Does it have hydrogen bonding? No. So what's its strongest intermolecular force? Dipole-dipole force. Will this make a solution with hexane? Probably not. Any questions?